Welcome again to Dave Blaze, who's about to spend his money and go and see some soccer. And how can you afford the prices?
Well, I'm going to watch on television.
Oh, not the
Why would I
same.
go to, let me ask you a question. Why would anybody go to a stadium and sit up in the above the rafters and look down on the microscopic players? Why would you do that when on TV you have a bird's eye seat?
Well, you do that because at halftime the girls come out with all their yeah.
Oh
Okay,
my
listen.
goodness.
Um, it's going to be too hot to play. The pitches are artificial, laid over NFL pitches, so there's going to be some injuries along the way. People are going to get stuck in the turf.
They're gonna get stuck in the turf. Well, wouldn't they get stuck in the turf normally?
No, it gives. It's quite different than the artificial stuff, semi-artificial stuff that lay down. I can see difficulties here. Yeah, the heat especially. We're not used to heat like that or humidity.
Oh, I see what you're saying. You mean in the United States?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's gonna be hot. Well, it's good. It's good for them. Well, I mean, it's hot in the South America, isn't it? It's hot in
Yes, but it
Morocco.
tends to be a different time of the year. But good luck to them. Even
See,
the Trump man has said it's too expensive. Bring your prices down.
I know. See, here's what happens. Just like the pharmaceutical companies. So Pfizer is coming to the United States. We're going to have all of those games here, and they're figuring, hey, we'll just make a killing on the pricing, on the ticket pricing. We'll make a killing on everything because the dummies in the United States, well, they'll pay anything. That's what our pharmaceutical companies do. When they sell the same exact drugs in Europe, in Africa, in the Middle East, in the Far East, in South America, dramatically 10%, 15% of what they charge to the United States.
That's the
I
way
don't
of the
understand
world.
that until Trump's putting an end to it. But I mean, it's highway robbery.
It is. We've had, by the way, consistently people getting in touch with us about your animals behind you. Well, one animal. And they're all saying the same thing. Why does he need a teddy bear at his age?
That's a lion.
I don't care. It's a teddy bear. It's a substitute.
Let me tell you a story about that lion. That lion, my mother, when I was about 5 or 6 years old, about five, took me to Bloomingdale's on Third Avenue in Manhattan, and amongst other things, bought me that little lion.
Oh,
So that little lion has been with me a long time, long time. Matter of fact, sitting up there out of camera view is a tiger right next to him.
oh, there you go. Well, I don't know. We mentioned a couple of times ago that perhaps it would be a good idea for George Magazine to start a dating page. And maybe this is the honest solution, Dave.
Yeah, we're never going to start a dating thing. This, first of all, number one, there's too many of them, and second of all, people need to meet people normally. I know that dating apps are very um, popular, but Rodney, you know, there's far too many liars on dating apps. You know, the person you meet when you meet someone in person is not the same look that they had on the dating app. I mean, it's
I've got to confess that one of my older presenters got in touch with somebody online, New
uh-huh.
York heart surgeon.
Oh yeah,
She said, "Come
straight
on
out of
over
Nigeria.
and see what it's like in the south of Spain." Well, when he saw uh, pictures that were not 30 years old, if I can be so bold, then he decided, I don't know, I can say this nicely, to sleep on the floor and the next day fly back to New York.
Yeah, yeah.
But there is the danger.
And how many of these dating apps, these people, they meet someone quote unquote online, and they are not where they say they are, and the next thing you know, they need money. I mean, it's one scam after the next.
It is.
So we'll never participate in it. What we will participate in is getting the truth out about all of these ridiculous narratives that are out there. For example, the latest one is that the Israeli army is taking over the United States military. That's the first one that I really want to touch base on because it's absolutely not true. And all of the Jew haters on X and Facebook are trying to make a case that Israel is taking over the United States, which is so far. I mean, it's absolutely the most ridiculous thing ever. And what they're basing it on is Section 224 of the National Defense Act for this year. Well, actually, for 2027. And what it is that okay? So let's say we send $10 billion of aid, monetary aid to Israel. Israel then turns around and buys $10 billion worth of military equipment from the United States. All right. So then they get that equipment and they improve on it. And they improve on it and then send it back to our manufacturers like Raytheon and Boeing and so on. Uh, and then we get to re-engineer it to make it better. So we have a real symbiotic relationship. The nearest thing I can think of to bring out an analogy is like the United States is Ford, right? And we make the Mustang. And then Shelby buys the Mustang and dramatically improves it. So that's like the United States and Shelby would be Israel. And of course, you know that the Russians, the Chinese, the Iranians, they hate that because it makes our weapons and our military equipment that much better. So that's what's going on. It's not that Israel's taking over the United States military. That's stupid.
They're smart dudes, though. I've just seen a recent poll that has identified who's got the highest IQ in the world. And guess what? It's Israel by a considerable margin. So
You
they
mean it's
got
not the
some.
Irish?
I don't mention where they are.
Hey, I'm part Irish, so I can talk to that.
Well, there you go. Enough said. Listen, the other thing that's coming up at the moment is there appears to be a dual deal, let's call it, between Russia, the Ukraine, Iran, various countries to get everybody in agreement and two wars will be stopped at once.
Could be. It's things are on the table, things are happening. And look, the bottom line is that Russia has lost hundreds of thousands of troops. There is a lot of evidence that the Russians are stealing Ukrainian children and bringing them into Russia as quote unquote orphans after they stole them from their Ukrainian parents, changing their names so that it can replenish the Russian population. And this is what, frankly, if anybody has a problem with what I'm saying, they can take it up with Melania Trump, who has been working with the First Lady of Ukraine and Vladimir Putin to get those children back. So this is a real problem. But anyway, so the Russians have taken tremendous losses. The Ukrainians have as well, but the Ukrainians have a very much advanced drone technology, and they are beating the Russians back at every turn. So now, I think under pressure from President Trump, there is agreements on the table to get all of this resolved. So we'll
Eh,
see.
Yeah, there is a very fast, low to ground drone that the West have not supplied to the Ukraine. So
Right.
what they've done is develop them themselves, and it's now operational.
Yep.
There's some smart cookies over there.
Yeah, they sure are. As a matter of fact, they're so smart that Donald Trump Jr. and Eric Trump formed a little company to bring Ukrainian drone technology to the West.
There
So
you go.
they're on top of things.
Now, we discuss from time to time, off air even, Nigel Farage.
I know. We
Will
like
he be
Nigel.
the next Prime Minister?
What do you think?
Betting man at the moment, he's on odds on. But what's happened this week in Prime Minister's Question Time in the House of Commons, frankly, has been awful. It's get Farage time. And everybody's against it, even the Conservatives, which is very strange. And actually, it's brought about a Farage bounce. He's even more ahead in the polls. But it's dangerous when the right wing, the Tory party, the Republican wing, have turned against Farage with such venom. Now, basically, I don't know how similar this is in the States, but the elite have been entrenching themselves in the United Kingdom for the last 30 years. And it's been gradual.
What do you mean by the elite? What does
Well,
that mean?
we call them the blob. It's made up of extreme left wing that inculcate them. In fact, no, I'm not going to use left wing. I'm going to use the truth. Marxists. They are Marxists. They're in the judiciary, big time. They're in the civil service, big time. They're in government, big time. And even the so-called left wingers of the Labour Party, who are men of the people, supposedly, are all joined into the blob. It is horrific what is happening.
Okay.
And something significant also this week is that uh, head Mrs. von der Leyen of the EU has actually said, hey, we've got a lot of immigrants everywhere in Europe. Not, can I say, in places like Poland and Hungary, which still maintain their spiritual values. They've stopped this wild immigration years ago, and it's really working out for them. But she now says, we'll have to get this sorted out. And they're thinking actually about time of repealing these 50-year-old stupid laws and 70-year-old indeed that allow the immigrants to get away with things. And her figures she's calculated are the same as in Britain, because there's only 24% of illegal immigrants deported. The rest, nobody knows where they are. And it's exactly the same on the continent. The continent of Europe is in a mess.
Hold on. Back up a little bit. What does that have to do with Farage becoming prime minister?
He will carry the nation with him at the moment. But these other characters will do everything, lie, kick, anything that will bring them down through the press as well, even the so-called centrist press.
Right. So what you have there is you have the same type of situation where like in 2015, and 2016, 17, where you had the Republican Party basically working against President Trump, who ran as a Republican.
There is that element in it as well.
Right, right. So that's what you have going on right now. So figure Nigel is like a Trump, and you have your conservatives that don't want his kind of change because his kind of change represents real change. So they're going to try and fight him at every turn. And that's the mess. See, that's the mess.
Something else is happening, which is very important and encouraging.
Okay.
The Donald is not well liked in Europe because of the press. They hate him. I tell you, I've seen a softening in that because they see what he's doing in America to close the borders with Mexico with a buoyant economy. And they look with what we've got in Europe and they see the opposite. And
Right.
when J.D. Vance, as vice president, comes up against Sir Keir Starmer, which he did 2 days ago about this horrible killing in Southampton, and
Yeah.
said, look, the reason this has happened is uncontrolled immigration. Of course it is. But you don't get anybody saying that, even the so-called right-wing press. They daren't. Such is the power of the leftists, communists, Marxists.
Hey, I got to tell you, I know you want to call them Marxists and you want to call them all of these names, but I just think that these are paid off idiots. These people are not smart. They're not smart people. Yeah, I mean, I think on the right, on the in the world that you and I ideologically are in, we used to think that these are clever people. They're not. These are dummies. They're really dummies, and they're just cunning, and they know how to. They've been trained how to shut you up, right? But they're not smart. They're not smart at all. So the thing is that all it takes is for people to push back against it. That's what it takes. It takes for people to say, you know what, no, I'm not doing that. And I'm going to tell you something. It's not even the immigrants. The immigrants, many of them, I believe, are just trying to have a better life. But you have the political side of it where they're trying to bring down the very government that is supporting them. I mean, it's a strange. Okay, so for example, now you have a large population like in our Minnesota and our northern states of Somalians. For whatever reason, they went to the coldest area of the nation. So the Somali people might be perfectly fine, but then you have the ideologues that want to scam the system.
Actually, it's a bit more simple than that because
Go ahead.
every single day of the week, of the year, there is a killing, usually by knife in the United Kingdom, or a rape, or
Well, because
both.
they don't have guns.
And 90% of them are from immigrants. And this is really
Well,
getting through to
now,
the
now hold
folks
on a
here.
second. Have you now hold on. And this is what we caution at George Magazine everybody to do. Have you actually looked at the statistics?
Yes, I have, and we've got some very interesting statistics.
So it's not like the
Oh,
native population,
no, indeed.
like a killing like up to here
No.
and all right.
Let,
Because you
let
know
me
how
give
the
you
news
let,
is.
let me give you an example that we've just done a program on that it's always taught at universities, at police colleges, that you have got a ratio of 4 black killings to 1 white killing. And everybody has accepted that. And it's a half truth because if you take the nation as a whole and the villages and
Right.
Scotland and Wales and the fringe areas, that's not the case. It's not 4 times more likely to be knifed and killed by a black person. So where they get the figures from? Well, they average it out. And stats can do anything from what question you ask to the reality. But if you look at central London, Tower Hamlets, for instance, it's 13 times more likely to get killed by a black person with a knife. In the country, it's practically unknown in the countryside. Now, it's nothing to do with black and white. It's to do with the socio-economic of that particular area. So, in other words, in towns and cities, the bad guys are getting hold of the young black guys and they're doing county lines. I won't explain what that is, but it's to do with drugs. They are saying, join our gang. And that's where the murderous stuff comes from. There are very many brave people. I've got a pal who's a boxer and he's opened a boxing school and he takes them in and gives them some focus and they are completely turned around. And that's what can happen when you turn around an area. So forget black and white. Martin Luther King was one of the few that got it right. And the other guys have come in and made their own little pantomime, as we say in the United Kingdom. And it's a mess. And it's ideologically and politically driven. And that's what Nigel Farage has got to beware of. They're out to get him, tell lies about him, because he's the only one that will stop the situation happening. And that's just in the UK. The rest of Europe, apart from the Eastern Bloc, Hungary and Poland, as mentioned, who have a spiritual base, they can cope. The rest of Europe, Dave, is in a mess.
That's a shame. That's a shame. Well, look all over here in this country. Trump's first administration was riddled with problems and impeachments and all of this stuff because the Congress he was working with, the party, the Republican Party, and all of that was not reformed at all. So both parties were working against him. Now the second term is very different because number one, he's got all handpicked. He had 4 years to sit back and handpick a cabinet and work on the Republican Party. The Republican Party now is literally the Trump Party. So it's a big deal difference. So Nigel has his work cut out for him, but if he can get in there and start turning things around, and the British people back him, regardless of what the media says, because the media is going to work tirelessly against him.
Yep.
Why do you think they're so against Trump for going after Venezuela and Cuba and Russia and so on? Is because that pops their communism balloon, their whole thing that socialism is the way to go. No, he's blowing it up at every turn, and their little socialist communist governments around the world are failing, and it's plain for everybody to see that it just doesn't work. So they're very upset. They're very upset about this.
I can imagine. Well, I'm sorry to say that the Labour Party is, as we say over here, full of puppets of Tony Blair and all the bad he did. And
yeah, but Tony Blair doesn't have the money to make anybody a puppet.
It doesn't work the same in the States. He's got a lot of influence, Tony Blair, because he was the most successful.
The only influence that politicians pay attention to is money.
Yeah, well, stateside is a bit different, Dave. And when you get a character like Blair, who was elected 3 times, wow, that is unique for Labour. Now, he did a lot of bad. Wasn't just Iraq. There were many other things. Well, I was going to say, puppets and Muppets. You've never seen anything like the quality of MPs that we have in charge of our country. They're either students in student politics that know absolutely nothing,
Right.
and the whole cabinet's not got one person that's got, out of 30 of them, that's got any business and been involved in any private business. And it's leaked out this week that when you go into a cabinet meeting, these are the people that control our country. There's one topic: who can we tax in order that we can give money to the so-called needy, who are not needy? They're sat at home
I
getting
know.
benefits for doing nothing. Now
I know.
that's communism. Where can we get? We'll slice the cake up a bit more.
Yeah.
Never mind who's made the cake, which is private business. We're going to give it away because we believe in equality, in
Yep.
diversity, in inclusivity. My goodness me, what a mess.
I know. I know. The problem is that when you have programs with good intentions like diversity and inclusivity and so on, DEI, that start out with good intentions, the scammers get in there and ruin the whole thing. Because those programs have good intentions on the onset, only they quickly degenerate because you have all of the scammers. They're like,
Well,
hey, we got this new program. How can we'll build the system out of whatever we can get out of it until they shut us down.
well, this week we've had the murder of Henry. And because the police were brainwashed into DEI, no ambulance was
Now, didn't the
called.
police see the man bleeding from the stab wounds? I
There was
saw it on the
blood.
video. I
They
saw the
saw
blood.
they saw two things that should have aroused suspicion straight away. One was blood coming out of his mouth, and secondly, his hands were white pale as the body takes.
Well, I know, but also I saw blood all over when they were handcuffing him. I saw blood
Yeah,
all over the place. Now, the police must, I mean, they see that's why there's something wrong here. There's something wrong. There's something wrong. I know what you're going to say. The police are told to ignore all that and only defend the illegal immigrants. I get it.
racism is what they're policing. Oh, he's racist. We can't go against him. He's from the black community or the brown community. And therefore, the ambulance was not called, and it could have saved his life.
Rodney, all I'm saying is there's something wrong with this situation. Cops do not show up. And if you are sitting there going, I've been stabbed, I'm bleeding, and they see you bleeding, they don't arrest you and pretend they don't see it. That doesn't happen. That doesn't happen anywhere. So all I'm saying to you is there's something wrong with that whole situation. Just let's let it play out because I'm telling you, there's something wrong there. Police don't do that. If police see somebody stabbed, they'll call an ambulance.
They do in the United Kingdom. Let me tell you what goes on at the police college. And again, this is hot news just coming out today in its fullness. There was a
Okay.
police officer, a Christian, who thought, I'll put something back into the community. He was taken into a DEI class and told how to behave in these circumstances. First, you not got to be racist at all, number one. Now, he questioned the officer in charge of the brainwashing school, and he said, well, how would you regard Hamas and militant Islamism? Is that a problem? And they sort of get an evasive answer. Long story, I'll cut it very short. He was told, hand your badge, go away, because he was asking the wrong question.
Yeah.
And these people were training our policemen and at the same time walking up and down the classroom, speaking a mantra. Islam is peaceable. Islam is peaceable. Now, that's how bad it is, the United Kingdom. You cannot imagine. And the left press even acknowledged this, not just the right-wing press. It is tragic. There will be a watershed from this death. The Poles, Corpus Christi, Thursday were taking the knee. Not the Brits, the Poles, in thousands,
That's a shame.
protecting the whites. It's
That's a
in a
shame.
mess. There's going to be a
Yeah.
big, hopefully, it will be a watershed in the right sense, and Britain will wake up. Europe will wake up. But there's a lot going on, Dave.
And well, let's end on this point. The United States has a population problem. The native population is not having children at anywhere the rate needed to sustain our entitlement programs. So the whole idea of bringing in immigrants ran off the rails. So right now in the United States, I don't know how it is in Europe, but right now in the United States, the really smart, dopey white people are not having children, and everybody else is. So we have a problem, and that's a big problem. And I know that might sound terrible to some, but you have all of these clowns in their late 20s, early 30s making videos about how they're not having kids and they're just living their lives and whatever it is. But that is dramatically hurting this nation. And I'm sure it's hurting Great Britain, and I'm sure it's hurting the rest of Europe because we were preached to for decades about birth control and not having a bunch of children and so forth and so on. But that same message was not delivered to anybody else. And now we're going to pay the price for it.
Absolutely, we're in the same boat.
I know.
Again, this last week, 40% of the babies born this year in the United Kingdom will be Indian native babies. 40%.
Yeah, but why is that, Rodney? It's not the Indian people's fault. They're having
Well,
kids.
no, not in the
They're having
least.
kids. This is the fault of the dummy whites, the dopey whites, and the dopey white churches that have caved into this ideology of not having a big family anymore.
There is
This is
an
what it
addition.
is.
There is an additional whammy in United Kingdom, and that is if you sit at home on the sofa, on the couch, you're going to get fed and watered, and it pays you to sit there and do nothing. At least the States are not that bad.
Well, even in times, even people that don't want to do anything or not work and get paid by the state want to go have sex.
Well, let's go back to the women's liberation movement, and
Well,
that's
there
a
you have a
mega
whole
factor.
nother, see, there you have a whole nother problem. This was all a grand, I don't want to use the word conspiracy, but it was a grand plan to get the dummy whites to literally destroy their own situation.
Well, we've done our bit. That's all I can say, Dave. We have 7 children. So there you go. It is possible, folks.
That's
And
right. And look at the shape of you.
look at the shape of it. But I mean, we used to be very amused walking down the street, of course, with all the kids behind
Right.
in height order. And we were often physically stopped. And we were asked on many occasions, are you Roman Catholics? And we
And what
used
was
to,
your response?
it's very easy. No, we're oversexed Protestants. End of conversation.
That's marvelous. All right, Rodney,
We better leave it there.
we did good. We got some word out. All right, we'll see you next week.
Okay.